Now, putting this together was tricky because there's just so much that I could show you and wanted to show you. But we only have, 45 minutes to an hour. I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So let's dive right in and, let me show you as much as possible. If you do have questions, as Rochelle said, put them in the Q&A or window. And I'll also point you to other resources kind of as we go through the session. So let's start. First thing, if you're new to Maple, you've never used it before or you have limited exposure to it, I always like to start these sessions kind of giving you the tools that you need to get help. So let's start here. How do you access help? Well, there's a bunch of different resources that are built directly into the product to help you get started very, very quickly. And these resources are not only for you as an educator, they can also be used by your students. So the first thing I want to show you is the start page. So when you load Maple for the first time, you are greeted with this start page. And the start page has in Maple, for this release, for Maple 2020, we've really pared down this page to try and focus on the key things that you need to get productive. So a few things. There's a great little intro video. It's no more than 2-3 minutes. I'd encourage you to watch it. It's great for students, so get them to watch it. It just gives them the basics in terms of how to use Maple, how to do simple things in Maple. Followed by that is the Maple Fundamentals Guide. And this actually walks you through, it's like a training, step by step in terms of how to use Maple. There's a video as well, and then there's a document. Personally, I really like using the PDF because I can have it next to me and then you can work through this tutorial. Another thing that we offer is if you're trying to onboard your students, there is a Maple readiness program that our client success team offers, and you can do that, and there's actually an assessment quiz component to it so you can see how your students are doing. The other thing is information on how to pick between a document and a worksheet. So if you are familiar with Maple, you'll know that there's different modes or different ways of working, and both are equally powerful, but it just provides you, a document allows you to really create a polished looking document, and a lot of the training materials are done in document mode. A worksheet tends to have prompts and is generally used more for creating programs. You can read more about the difference here. The next thing I want to talk about is the portals. So again, this is all in the product, but the portal has a bunch of tutorials. They're each approximately 5 to 10 minutes, and they walk you as well as any students through how to use Maple. So how to enter math in Maple, how do you combine text and math, how do you solve equations, how do you plot, how do you work with commands. Basically, there's tons of resources over here, as well as details on where you can go for to access training materials, our programming and user manual, and a collection of examples. So if you're trying to do something, you're not quite sure how to do it, chances are we have an example or an application that you can use to help you get started. So the next thing I want to show is, one of the things that Maple is really known for when it comes to teaching and learning is this concept of clickable math and all of our interactive tutorials. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is making, a computer algebra system as accessible as possible, and allowing people to get productive. So let me walk you through this. So you'll see over here, I've put together a bunch of different examples, and I actually want to show you how you can use our clickable math functionality and kind of do the training using some of these examples. Now, for the sake of time, I've picked a few examples from pre-calculus, calculus, linear algebra. What I will show you later on is where you can get hundreds of more examples, and each one comes with its own worksheet as well as a video. So let's start here. Simple question that students will encounter in a pre-calculus course is solving a quadratic equation. So first thing, let's make this a little bit bigger for you. So I want to show you how you can use Maple to solve this problem. So the first thing is maybe you would want to see a plot, a graphical solution for this. So here I'm going to drag this down. Wrong spot. Let's try that. Let's try that here. For whatever reason, it's not going where I want it to go. So here is my expression. And now what I'm going to go and do is I want to plot this. So there's different ways to do this. One, I could use, you'll see over here, the smart pop-up, and this will give me a plot immediately. I can also use this context menu, and I can say, okay, give me a 2D plot. Now, one thing to know about the context panel, and this is something not only do I love, but educators who I've spoken to praise this, is the context panel and the values in the context panel are context sensitive. So they'll change based on your input. So over here, like I mentioned, there are two different ways that we could generate this plot, but something I want to show you is the plot builder. So the reason I like the plot builder is it gives you a lot of functionality. So it allows you to choose what type of plot you're doing. Again, you don't have to know any of the commands. So in this case, I'm going to create a 2D plot. But over here, this panel changes so I can actually modify the plot, again, without commands. So I can go ahead and let's change this view, because really what I'm interested in is finding, the roots. Let me change the view here. I'm going to go from -5 to, let's say, 10. So change that. The other thing I want to do is show you that command. So here, you notice that the view has changed. The other thing I've done is I've asked it to show me the command. And I do this as a way to get people familiar with the Maple command language and the programming language. And this is a good way to kind of get students used to how Maple works and how they can communicate with Maple. So here's my plot. And so then here I could go ahead and I can see, well, these are the roots. But now let's say I want to get an analytical solution. How would I do this? So let's go and get that equation one more time. So I can control drag. Let's see. Here we go. So here it is. And let me actually get the full equation. And now I can just use the context panel and say, give me the solution. So this is the value for x. The other thing that you can do here is I can go and say, well, what's the result of completing the square? These are nice ways for students to kind of check their work and see if the answer that they get is right. It's also nice in the classroom if you're not wanting to go through all of the different steps right away. You just want to see the answer, or this is just part of a bigger problem that you're trying to explain. But now let's say you actually want to work through this problem line by line. So I want to show you how you can do that. So here again is my equation. And now what I want to do is I'm going to click this. It's called manipulate equation. And this actually allows me to, as it says, manipulate and modify the equation and solve the equation kind of step by step. So let me show you how to do this. So here's my equation. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to get the left side to be a perfect square. So here I'm going to go ahead and we want to add 9 to both sides. So it's half of the linear term squared. Now what I'm going to go and do is factor the left side. So I have this. The next step would be to factor. Now I'm going to want to add 9. Okay. And now I'm going to want to factor. And so then the next thing I want to show you over here is, so the next thing we want to do is take the square root of both sides. And you'll see that we get 2 possible solutions. Let's go ahead and pick the positive one. Okay, and then I can go ahead and add 3 to both sides. And here you go, and you'll have the solution for x. And now let's say I want to go back and do that for the other root. I can go back, and one of the ways that I like to do it is using the undo key. You've seen me use this before. So go back over here, and now I'm going to take the square root. I'm going to pick the negative one over here, choose that, and then I'm going to go ahead, add 3 to both sides. We'll do this, and now when I can go ahead and I can return all of the different steps. And here's how I solved the problem. So that's something I wanted to show you. Now, right now we use the manipulated equation for solving a complete square, but you could see how it was all set up to actually work with any possible equation and apply any operation. And this is done really to kind of prevent or to minimize a student having to learn the Maple language in order to get productive. So let's go ahead and look at another example. So let's go ahead and solve a linear system. So here it is. And the first thing I'm going to do is drag my first equation over here. I'm going to push enter, and you're going to see Maple's going to output the result. And now I can go ahead and say, okay, well, let's obtain the solution for y. Let's kind of rewrite this in terms of y. So I can go here, again, using the context panel. This time, instead of solve, I'll say obtain the solution for y. And here it is. I can go and do that for the second one. Same thing. This time, actually, I want to show you a trick using command labels. So here it is. Solve. And now, one of the things, I picked this example so I could show you how you could use equation labels to actually refer to one of your equations. You'll notice here, one of the reasons I kind of pressed enter to return the output on a new line is because Maple gives me an equation label, and I can use this equation label to refer to any one of these equations. So here I'm going to use the equation labels for 3 and 5 and equate them. And to do that, it's Control L. And if I want, I can go here and look at label, and I can get the label reference too. So this is a nice way to do it. I don't have to retype the equation. I can use the label. What's also nice is if I go up here and I make any changes, it'll automatically populate over here. But here it is. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is solve this for x. And I will use, here's my solution for x. And again, notice here, if I don't actually push enter, Maple gives me the solution in line. So and that's something I tend to do quite often, just because I find it creates a neater document. But here, I want this result to be on a new line. And I can actually go and change the labels. So over here, I could say solving for x. And I can go and I can edit this. And so I can see, I can type that as well. Alternatively, if I want, if I'm trying to use Maple and I want to kind of see the underlying commands, I can go ahead and say show me the command. So here I can see that it's using the command solve, and at any point I could click F2 and it'll bring up the help page for that command, and I can look at all the different options. So I see a question over here, and it said, how did I load this content? This is actually content that I created. I'm just going to go back here, and I loaded it. Over here, I'm using a workbook, and we'll touch on this a little bit later in the webinar. I've created a bunch of different worksheets, and I have hyperlinks. So as soon as I clicked on the hyperlink, in here, over here, this is again is another hyperlink, and I go down, and that's how I opened up this worksheet. I can go and then collapse this, so it's neat. And so now here's my value for X, and then I can go ahead and I want to evaluate the value for Y. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at and I'm going to use evaluate at a point, and I'm going to type in my solution. And here's the result, and I can use the context panel to approximate as well. So Louise, your question, there's a lot of resources that do come with Maple. I'll actually show you a little later on where I got them. So these particular examples I pulled from the Teacher Resource Center. So I'll show you that. Just give me 1 second. The next thing I want to show you is how to solve this kind of using substitution. Again, so I'm going to control drag that first equation. Here it is. So here's my first equation. And this time, I'm going to isolate the expression for y. So here it is. The difference here, I get the solution in terms of y equals this equation. I'm going to do the same thing for the second equation. I'm going to drag the second equation down here, and now I'm going to use equation labels to evaluate, but this time what I want to show you is the palettes. So we can kind of use evaluate similar to what I showed you in the context menu above, or Maple comes with, here you'll see an expression palette. Basically, it's a template of different things to make math entry easier. And Maple has 1,000 expressions and symbols within its collection of palettes. And all of these palettes are found on the left side. This is just a subset of all of the different palettes that are available to you. You can rearrange the palettes. The other thing that I really like doing is you can add different expressions or templates to your favorites palette. So if there are things you're using more than others, you can do that. In this particular case, what I wanted to show you is the evaluation template. So here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add this to my favorites palette. You see it comes right here. Here's my cursor. I'm going to just push on this, and you'll see this is my template coming up, and I can use the tab key to move from element to element. So over here, I'm going to say, well, what is my expression? I'm going to refer to 9. Again, that's Control L. Use tab. I can delete this. Oh, sorry, this is. I want to evaluate this at here. Sorry, I made a mistake. Hold on. Here's my substitute y function. Go ahead and solve. And you'll see how we got the result. And then I can go ahead and do the same thing. I can evaluate substitute, use the evaluation template, and substitute for y. So here it is. And here's the solution. So that's a different way that you can go ahead and solve this problem. So let's go back to, so that's two ways, and that's basically showing you the palettes and the context menu. Now I want to show you kind of a little bit more about some of our tutors and our task templates. And I'm going to show you this looking at a calculus problem. This one is to applying the mean value theorem to this function. This is the domain, and determine the C. So here we go over here. So I want to show you how you do this by using a tutor. So up here, you know, I talk about what is the mean value theorem. Most of you are educators, so you'll know this, so I'll skip over this. But let's look at how you can actually go ahead and solve this. So the first way we're going to do this is, the first thing we want to do is we want to load the student calculus package. So Maple comes with thousands upon thousands of commands. A lot of the commands are grouped into packages in order to make it easier to kind of access the commands that are of interest to you. And Maple has a number of sub-packages just for teaching and learning. They're the student sub-packages. And so here I want to load the student calculus 1 package, and we can load a package in different ways. One of the ways you can do it is you can go to tools, load package, and you'll get a list of all of the different packages that we have. Here I want the student calculus 1 package. So I'm going to go ahead and load this. And if I click this, here is the help page for that package. So I can see this particular help page. And what I love about the student calculus, the overview pages, it gives you a sense of, you know, all the different visualizations that are built into the product to help a student understand a concept, as well as all the different interactive routine. So the different tutors to help somebody master a concept, as well as single step computations. And again, you can look at all of these to see more, and we'll show you that right now. So here I'm going to type this expression into Maple. I'm going to use X. And I'm going to show you something that we added into Maple 20 that I find is very, very helpful. So here I typed X times e to the minus X. And you'll notice Maple gave me a warning. I show you this because this is a place where students often make a mistake. They'll use the letter E and think they're referring to the exponential function. And that'll often kind of, it's a gotcha, like what did I do wrong? So one of the things we added into 2020 is just this warning to let people know that, hey, if you wanted to enter in the exponential function, you could do so using the command. So I have it here, or I'll do that. You can actually do, you can type, and if you go to escape, you can get command complete, and a window pops up, and it basically asks you, okay, what command did you want to apply? And I can say this. So here it is. This is our function. And then now what I want to do is I want to look at the tutor. So I'm going to go to the student calculus 1. And as soon as I load a package, commands within that package show up in the context panel. And so now I can look at the tutor. And in this case, I want the value theorem tutor. So this is going to pop up. And I can go, and here I wanted to change this from 0 to 3. So here's my curve. I also see the command over here. I can see the value of C, and this is a good way to kind of teach this. So I'm going to, when I close this, it'll actually return this for me. And if I copy pasted the command, I could also use that command to change the option over there to get that result. But I'm going to show you how we can get the result from first principles. So let's go ahead. Here's our function. I'm going to copy this. And so this time, here's my expression. I want to actually go ahead and assign this to a name. So I can do that in multiple ways. Again, one is through the context panel. So I can say, assign this to the function f of x. Or I can just use the assign statement, so which is f of x colon equals, here it is. And then I can go and solve this. I'm going to look at f of 3 equals f of 0 plus the derivative at c times 3 minus 0. And here it is. And now I can go and click solve. And I made a mistake here. Solve. And if I return, here's the result of C. So that's one way to do it. I could have also done this, and I could have said solve and just told it to give me the numeric solution. And there's the result. So the next one I want to show is a Riemann sum problem. So again, over here, I'm going to load the package. I showed you how to do that earlier using the tools menu. The other way to do it is using the with command. So I'm going to say with, and I'm just basically going to call the package. And using colon dash gives you access to a sub package. I'm going to load this. And if I use the colon, it'll suppress kind of displaying all the different commands within that package. If I leave it open, you'll see these are all the different commands that are available to you within the student calculus package. And on any one of these, you can slash F2 and it'll bring up the help page for that. So here's that, the student calculus 1 package loaded. I'm going to go take this over here. And so the first thing I want to do is get my x-intercepts. Solve this. And here's my x-intercepts. And now I'm going to go ahead and call the Riemann sum tutor. So there's, again, different ways to do this. The way I love, which is what I showed you earlier, is using the context panel. But you can also access all of the different tutors from the Tools Tutor menu. And here you get a list of all of the tutors, and they're organized by course. So we have different tutors for pre-calculus, single, multivariate calculus, vector calculus. The list kind of goes on and on. But the reason I like doing it through the context panel is because when I call the tutor, the input is already updated with my particular expression. So here it is. And now what I'm going to do is call the student calculus tutor. I'm going to look at the Riemann sum tutor, and that opens up. And I can change this. So here I want to go from 2 to minus 2 to 3. And so here it is, and then you can look at the animate button. And you can kind of see as you increase the number of partitions, how you get the approximate area kind of becomes or equivalent or closer to the actual area. You can actually compare the different methods and see what the approximation is. So now I can close this. And here's my plot. And the next thing I wanted to show you is the solution by task template. So if you go to Tool and you go to Task Browse, basically Maple provides you built-in, it's a set of tasks. And again, they're all grouped by subject, but a task is a template that kind of helps you perform a particular task. So it allows you to perform a mathematical computation, and it kind of groups all of the different commands that you would need to create that operation. It helps you construct a Maple object. So if you weren't looking how to construct a function, we have a task for that. gives you details on how to create an application. So it is very, very powerful. But over here, I wanted to go in and show you this particular, to approximate integration. Sorry. Riemann sums. And I want to look at the left Riemann sum. I could pick either one. And you'll see this is what a task template looks like. And I can go ahead and copy this directly into my worksheet. And it'll basically enter wherever, right above wherever my cursor was. So for this, I'm going to take this. And I want it here. So here it is. Here's my task template. And I can go ahead, and now all I have to do is modify these for my function. So in our particular example, our function is 6 plus x minus x squared. So I can control drag or I can copy. Here it is. So the interval we want to look at right now is the interval -2 to 3. Now, in this case, since we've already kind of looked at the a graphical investigation, let's go ahead and change this to n. So I'm going to say an arbitrary number of rectangles. And here you can see that the task template already shows you the command that you need to solve this problem. And what I love about a task template is it uses equation labels, as we've seen before, and we can go ahead and it already pulls in all the information that it needs in order to give the result. So here's this result of the less Riemann sum, and now I can call value, and here it is. And so here what I can do is now, let's say I want to kind of verify or basically the value of this, of the Riemann sum, is you have to take a limit over here. So I'm going to call the limit function. And that's over here. And I'm going to get infinity, so I can use, again, from the common symbols template, so it's right over here, or I can use what we call as command completion. So I'm going to start typing infinity, press escape. And I want this value. So I can use the control label. And here's my result. And notice, to display something in line, what it is Alt equals. The other thing I want to show you right now is kind of solution steps. So here we have an integral. Find the integral of sine of x squared. So again, what I want to show you is, I could tell Maple here, and I can go ahead and even without loading the package say, give me the result, and it'll do it. But I want to show you the all solution step. So I'm going to go ahead and load that student calculus package again. And I don't even have to do that because I'm in the same worksheet. So I only have to load it in once. You'll see that it's already in my panel. So I'll just go here. And you'll see it'll give me all the different solution steps. So I can use a tutor, and the tutor can help me kind of work through this. So we can look at the integration methods tutor. And the tutor will pop up, and it gives me a way, to solve this step by step. And I've already shown you the tutors, but what I wanted to show is here. If I do this, Maple will output all the different solution steps. So this is great if I'm actually working on a problem step by step. I can see everything. So let's go back to this. Now I want to show you a few linear algebra examples. And hopefully this is helping. I thought it would be much more interesting for a webinar to show you how you can do different operations in Maple simply using you know, a real example to show it to you. So let's look at this. Let's look at Gauss-Jordan elimination to solve this particular system of equations. So this time, here, this one has, this worksheet actually has my solution. So let me show you how I did this. So first thing is I want to load the student linear algebra package. So this time I'm going to go to Tools, Load Package, and I want student linear algebra. And the student packages basically have different conditions, or the commands are slightly different, really in order to optimize or help a student learn a particular concept. So we actually do have a full linear algebra package, but I recommend the student linear algebra package for teaching a concept. So here it is, and the first thing I'm going to go and do is I'm going to drag all of these expressions and I'm going to create them in a comma-separated line. So here you go. Then what I wanted to show you is I'm going to convert this using a command within the student linear algebra package to form an augmented matrix. So I give it all my variables, so x, y, z. And here we have it. And now I'm going to use this equation label to, I'm going to go to here, solvers and forms, ask for row echelon form, and then reduced. And here's my solution. So that's one way kind of how to go ahead and create an augmented matrix. The other way you could do it is by, I want to show you the matrix palette. So you could go here and I could actually just create my 4x4 matrix, insert the matrix, and then use the tab key to navigate through. Now I want to show you the tutor. So if you were doing this in a separate worksheet, go ahead, load the student linear algebra package. We've already done it over here. So here's my augmented matrix. Let me just use the and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to call the Gaussian elimination tutor. And here I can go ahead and kind of work through solving this problem. So if I get stuck, I can say, okay, well, show me what the next step is, and it tells me what it's done. And then when I close this, it'll it'll return what I've done. So let me go here. I want to show you everything. So let's say we work through it, close, and these are all the steps. Alternatively, you could actually have done the same thing using, again, here's my augmented matrix, and I could go and actually apply the elementary operations line by line. So if I was trying to solve this line by line in my worksheet, I could do that as well. So given the time, I'm going to skip this problem, but I do want to show you where I got a lot of these resources. Back here. So I mentioned earlier, if you are an educator, the Teacher Resource Center is just a great place to go and get different applications and examples. There's a bunch of different recorded webinars. There's a Clickable Calculus webinar series. The one that I recommend, or the thing that I love the most, is this Teaching Concepts with Maple. And so you'll see over here, here is a list of all the different problems And this is only a subset. These were created by Dr. Robert Lopez, and he taught at Rose-Hulman for a bunch of years. And so this is actually explaining things from the perspective of an educator. But what I love is, you can click here, and each one has a video. You can go ahead and download the worksheet, and you can also download all of the different videos that were used, so you can look at this step by step. So everything that you saw in my worksheet today, I pulled it from examples that are on the Teaching Concepts with Maple. So I would encourage you to go there and take a look and explore this. It'll really show you how to do particular things. So enough, I think I've given you a good sense of clickable math. I want to talk to you about creating plots and animations. So one of the things that educators love, and not only educators, but researchers love about Maple is how easy it is to go ahead and create visualizations. So we saw that above, but let me show you that here. I'm going to go and just create my plot. What I love here is I can take this and I can drag this on. So here's my plot window. I can go and I can annotate this, add some text. And then I can actually type things, or if I want to put things in kind of math, use the toggle up here between text and math, or you can use the F5 key, and I can actually type that in. So I have 2 times x times sine of x divided by square root. And I'm going to use command completion, which is escape. X. And here we go. I can move this where I want, and I can create an arrow and say, that's this line over here. So that's how you can easily kind of add plots to the same plot window. I also want to show you here. I can go again, I can create a plot, but this time I'm going to use the plot builder. That'll open up shortly, and I can create a polar plot. I can also do something which is create a 3D plot. And here's my 3D plot. And I can rotate this. I have all the different tools over here to be able to change the view, or I can also use this to make some modifications. Here, I'm going to show you how we can visualize this. Again, this time I'm going to use the 3D command. So here's my plot. But this time what I want to do is, instead of specifying a value, I'm going to use a variable r. I'm going to use explore command. This allows me to create an interactive application. I'm going to go from 1 to 5. I'm going to click on explore. And here you go. Here's a kind of a one-step interactive application that I just created. The other thing I want to show you is, we talked about the Riemann sum earlier before. So here is that command, and I've generated this plot over here. Now what I want to do is take this and I'm going to put my partition as I. And I'm going to create animation. And you'll see how I've created my animation. So that's something that's really powerful about the explore command. Basically, you can apply it to any different command you can go ahead and even apply it, I'll show it right here, to a procedure that you created. So over here, I have a procedure that kind of allows you to explore a smoothing constant. I'll show it to you. So here is the procedure. I'm going to execute this. I'm going to apply the explore command. So here it is. So let's kind of go back to, I want to show you a little bit more about how you can create your own interactive application. So Maple comes with a bunch of different buttons and plot windows and sliders and dials and knobs. And you can go ahead with a little bit of kind of experience or knowledge with the Maple command language, or if you're, sophisticated programmer who knows the Maple language, you can go ahead and create your own different interactive application. Here, create this. I'm going to go ahead and plot this function, and you can actually see the code. Over here, in order to do this, it's basically using commands within the document tools package. So I have a get property and a set property, and I can go ahead and use these commands to do this. So here's my sine of x, cos of x, here's my second one, and I can plot these together, or I can plot, let's say, the subtraction. So this is one way to kind of build your own interactive applications. And again, go to the document tools package in the help page. Show you that. Here, and it talks to you about the different calling sequence. You can look at how these work. So I can click on the help page and I can see this. And if I ever wanted to play with any of the help pages or kind of have it directly in Maple so I can manipulate, if you click on this button over here, it'll actually open up the help page in a Maple worksheet for you. So here's some examples of the applications that we've created over here. So here is exploring, investigating surface of revolution. This is all created using the same components that you see here. So here I'm going to go and I will draw my curve. And this is the surface of revolution. And if at any point you come across one of our hundreds of different math applications, which I'll show you, and you want to look at the code, click on this, make it editable, and then you can go up here and you can look at the startup code and you can see all the different code that was used to create that. Now, this is something really sophisticated that you can do knowing the Maple programming language, which we'll talk to you about shortly. So this is something that I really like to do. Another example that I want to show you is, close this. So this is another application. And so you can go and you can click, and all of these are interactive. So here's my carry. This one is a bridge torch problem. So trying to, cross the bridge in the least amount of time. But I just wanted to show you how these work. So you can have a little animation and visualization or create games. If you go to Math Apps, I'm going to show you the guide. So we have, as I mentioned, hundreds upon hundreds of different math apps, and they're all kind of organized into different sections. But if you're looking at, algebra and geometry, discrete math, you'll see them over here, and you can look at any of them. We've actually added a bunch of different math apps kind of for exploring linear algebra. You can look at them and play with any of these math apps. So these are great if you're trying to explain a concept to a student. Or if you want to create your own, let's actually talk about that. So I mentioned some of these math apps, require knowledge of the Maple programming language. But I want to show you here. Let me go back to my main page. So the Maple language is extremely powerful. In fact, all the commands that you see in Maple are all built using the Maple programming language. And so as you get familiar, kind of the progression generally, you use the Clickable Math or Clickable kind of worksheet, the context panels, you start to look at some of the commands, and then you want to do something that's more sophisticated. Well, you can do things like show the commands, and then you can start kind of creating your own programs or procedures. If you are interested in doing this, a resource that I don't think people use enough, and it's directly in the product, is our programming manual. This is a great way to learn the Maple programming language. And so here's context. We have an active debugger that you can use, how you can create your own different packages, all of the different data structures that are used in Maple. I struggled in this webinar to figure out kind of what exactly I should show you when it comes to programming, because there's so much. And I think if you're new to Maple, I can't emphasize this resource enough. It is the place to go if you're interested in learning about Maple. And then you can also look at all of the different applications that we have. Maple allows you to put everything together. You've seen this as I go along, how I have text and math and graphics, all of this together. And that's something that makes Maple very, very powerful. So you can see examples in our application gallery, and all of this will be ready for you to see. But one thing I wanted to show is any application, any worksheet that you create, you can actually go and share this in the Maple Cloud. So I can save this to the Maple Cloud, and this will be accessible to my students. So I can publish it to the Maple Cloud. I can add my own thumbnails, my description, and I'm going to go into the Maple Cloud. And so you can see a bunch of different math apps that were created by us as well as other users. You can take a look at all of these. You have a place to create your own files. You can share certain directories with your students. So something else to look at. And then I wanted to talk about the Maple Companion app. So we recently launched a phone app, and this is great on its own because it allows you to solve math problems directly on your phone. But what I love it is it's a way to actually go ahead and kind of enter math into Maple directly. So I'm going to show this to you quickly on my phone. So here's the app launching on my phone. Now I'm going to go ahead and I can take a picture. The matrix, and it'll give me the results. I can click on this. It'll go ahead and it will upload this into the Maple Cloud, and then I can go and retrieve it. Dismiss this, it tells me where it was, and I'm going to go back. And if I go to Maple Companion folder, you'll see this is what I just took a picture of, and I can take this and download it, and it can be available to me in Maple. I can work on it. So that's something that I wanted to show.